Fitness Pro Mentor community, welcome to another episode of the show. This is my favorite one of the year. I was really excited. This is the third time with this group, and I don't want to take up too much space because these guys are way cooler than me. We are doing the Biomechanics Business Bonanza number 3, end of the year. And first, we got Jacques, Mr. Jacques Henry Newell-Taylor. How you doing today? I can't hear you yet.
Let's try that. I'm doing very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm doing very good. You have one of the best voices. I mean, I really feel like you should have like your own podcast, and it just should be like you can do anything. Welcome to Sensual Time with Jacques. You know?
Ooh, that's interesting. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll give that a shot.
So anyone who's listening to this, if you're watching this live, Jacques and I did an episode with Evan Picon, and he talked about a bunch of things he's working on, and he's got this new Knox receptor. I mean, you got to check that out, man. That thing's something juicy.
I'm on it.
Beautiful. And then we have our United Kingdom correspondent, Trisha Takanawa. I mean, Michael Goulden. So, Michael, welcome. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Great, man. Dude, I was saying this offline, but your camera setup and your vibe you got there, it's just like, it's the best. It's looking very smooth. I mean, with you and Jacques, you got that podcast going, Sensual.
We just can't afford really kind of bright lights here. You know, we just got to have the candles around the studio and just create a certain ambiance.
That training life, man. Leases are expensive. Candles are cheap. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a sale on Hanukkah candles right now because there's a surplus. I mean, that was just perfect timing. All right. And then we got Curtis Van Wyck of Curtis Clay Training. Curtis, how you doing today, buddy?
Good, man. Doing well. Just, loving life. Weekend's coming, so time with the kids, Be good. Yeah.
Hey, so I got a question that's not even for everybody. I'm going to ask right off the bat. Curtis, did you buy a robot for your training facility?
A robot. Yeah, you call it a robot. It's a machine that does all concentrics. So you can change the weight and stuff, but it's more so to detect like velocity, how fast you rotate, punt, press, whatever it is. So it's been a nice layer to like the data from our assessments and that kind of stuff to make sure, we're going the right direction. So it's been really good for teaching people how to use their feet. I've liked it for like rhythm, walking people, that kind of stuff. It's been pretty cool. So I guess you call it a robot. I don't know. Maybe.
I feel like we need a live demo.
Yeah. Can you live demo it, or are you locked in?
I can turn it.
Let's turn it. Let's see it. Let's turn this thing.
All right, hold on. Yeah. Oh.
We're doing this.
You got to love improv. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man. This is where it's at.
Yeah, so this is it. It's like that. So it's got like a computer screen and stuff. But I got it mainly because like the rotational athletes. So you can like, here, I'll take these off. So you can like, you can change the handles, but you like, right, that kind of stuff.
Robot.
You can increase the resistance. So like there's no, like with med balls, the weight's going to pull down. So I can actually like train rotation or whatever it is. But I really like it for people when they come back from like walking injuries. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So like if I want to unload it because they have to push it, it doesn't spring back. You got to kind of like push, walk backwards, retro step. It's been kind of cool. Or like if I want to teach somebody how to like load and step and then come back if I'm working on a hip. I think the more I explore with it, it'll be pretty cool. People think it's for athletes, but I think it's better for adults as we age because I'm getting well stricken in years. I want to maintain power. That was a joke, but I'm a young buck. I'm a young buck.
Childish Clay.
But it's a way to kind of like train power in like I guess a safer manner. There's no spring back from the cable machine or machine and that kind of stuff. So I mean it's big, it looks cool, but it's just a tool. You know what I'm saying? So, but I'm gonna use that for the pure torque, that pure priming. That's what I'm gonna be using that for. So, anyways, yeah, that's that thing.
Awesome.
Beautiful, dude. Well, Curtis, listen, man, thanks for showing us your robot. One of the things that we're going to be doing here today is we're going to have each of us ask a question to the group, and we can see what everybody's got to say. And Curtis, if you're into it, do you want to ask your question first?
Yeah, I can for sure ask it. So like for me, one thing I've been messing with lately is kind of like trunk control, right? So spinal control, trunk control, hips, that kind of stuff. And thinking about moment arms and how, like, I guess my perspective, wow, hey, yo, I feel like I think about that aspect of moment arms and changing exercise all the time. Whether it's, I mean, the simple one would be like a cuff here versus here versus here. But I've been trying to explore like feet widths, right? So how wide are the feet when we're turning versus how close they are, that kind of stuff, or where does the instrument attach to their body? How much in your guys' training do you guys think about like the impact of moment arms?
Michael, why don't you go first, Mr. Integra? I'd like to hear what you got.
When you're thinking about foot placement, what is it that goes through your mind?
I'm just thinking about demand, right? So if the wider I go, obviously it's more like control, right? The closer I go, the harder it's going to be. But I'm also thinking of like muscle demand, right? So I guess this would be more Jacques' route of like mitochondrial type stuff, demand on the tissue. But I was thinking more so like from that example of the feet being wider, if I've got a cable pulling from here, what's the challenge on one thigh versus another, right? Or another simple version for the rotation piece would be like, obviously hands are further out. Maybe I got somebody that can't feel that from there. I'll bring them in, right? Or the pure torque's been great because I can hold here and rotate or change that angle, whatever it is. But I guess mainly my question was like, how much do you guys think about leveraging your understanding of moment arms when you're training people?
The reason why I asked that is because you've got the support continuum, and then you've got the resistance continuum in terms of, are you loading closer to the axis or further away from the axis? And then I guess there's those lines of force, and you talked about the point of application, but you've got multiple opportunities for that point of application. So that, you know, on this free motion there, if we're doing some sort of side bend, obviously we can have the line of force going up, and then we can have this one going down. So we're actually creating some sort of rotation there. I can't. I'm really struggling to answer the question because I can't think of a way that I wouldn't be thinking about moment arms.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Like, I guess I was more so wondering like how often, right? But essentially when it comes down, essentially thinking about how much you're thinking about it within your session. That makes sense what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I feel like I think about it all the time. Like, obviously that was a support, that type of stuff, but distance of where the application is, how often are you thinking about that? Or in an exercise, if I'm doing something, you're like, man, they're not feeling this out right, or they're not really locking this in. Are you like, wow, is that a moment arm thing? I've already got a lot of support somewhere. Do you guys play those games? And like one thing for me is like, I got this new squat bar I've had for a while where you can change where the weight sits on you. And I've been almost with my athletes and adults, not changing load, but changing where the weight is on them. So I feel like I've been playing with that moment arm game a lot more lately versus like most strength and conditioning places like add more weight. When really, if I just change that a little bit, we know it's going to be heavier, but it's also going to be a new challenge for them, if that makes sense. So I guess I was more curious about how often, you know, well, I think you kind of answered it, but you're thinking about moment arms.
Do you find with that squat bar that it changes their configuration as they go down,
Correct.
so they try and can't go?
That's cool.
Like they got to solve a new problem, even though the weight didn't change, right? But it's like, well, what's the difference going on here? So I guess I'm thinking about those types of things more so right now, like the moment arm question versus like increasing weight. How well can I give them, or how well can I get them to do this movement in a different scenario or situation, which will hopefully make their system more robust in life, in sport. So I guess I was more curious about how often you guys are thinking about that, and maybe like an example of how you guys, or if you have an example of that.
I guess the moment arm thing, you mentioned the rotation. So we've got one of the pure talks here as well. But if you're just doing that kind of cable wood shop, the thing that I'm playing around with there with some clients, I'm thinking about the speed of the mass. So if it's further away, it's going to be traveling further. If it's closer to the body, it's not going to be traveling that fast. So depending upon the needs of the client. like I say, it's a tricky question. I know Jacques going to have a much more congruent answer.
Butter in the bread right there.
But it is. The words that are rattling around are the point of application and the, what are the inertial effects that I want the client to deal with, and do I want this to be a pure rotation exercise, or do I want it to be biased for one side? So if I'm over there on the Bravo, can I be doing some sort of single arm rotation where it's all the extensors plus all the extensors are rotating to that direction? And so there's definitely lots of, I'm converting that word moment arm into torque.
I got you. Yeah, which makes complete sense, right? So, yeah, I just feel like I've been almost taking a step back and looked at like what's happening. We tend to focus on what's happening externally, and I'm almost switched that to like what is the body trying to do to that? What are the things they need to achieve that, versus it like, oh, I'm gonna put a cable over here because I want to work this. Well, what does that look like from the inside? Like, what are the force things that need to happen or decisions that need to be made for that to happen? And wow, that distance out here on, like, say, this one you're talking about or closer, this was a better solution for them. Well, maybe we use that to progress into that versus road. And I think I've been exploring that more so lately. That's why my question was more related to whether it was torque, or the moment arm thing. I feel like I've been thinking about that more, and I've had some really good results, almost taking a step back, because a lot of times parents come in and from the athlete side and say, I want my kid to get stronger. And I'll ask them, well, what does that mean? What does getting stronger mean to you? And the parents are like, well, get stronger. I'm like, well, can you use other words than that? And then we get to this point of like, I might say, hey, what if they're doing a push-up or a dumbbell press with 30 pounds and they do 5 reps the first week, and say a month later they're doing 10? Would you categorize that as stronger? Or does it have to be more weight or whatever it is? Or do you want them to feel stronger on the field? Because that's hard to quantify that, right? So, how do you look at that? So I feel like playing this moment arm game, I've had really good options, if that makes sense.
Michael's a good person to ask, but he's also not, because he can't afford power and he's got candles. So maybe, Jacques, we can come to you. How would you think about this moment arm thing?
Much in the way that my colleagues do. I mean, it's an ever-present thing. But what I'm realizing is that, and this is something that I know my colleagues have, alluded to without saying it, but it becomes one ingredient that that can't stand by itself, right? So in other words, it's oh, that's funny. Is that you? There's a lot of background noise somewhere. Is it me? Can you guys hear it? No?
I can hear the background noise.
That's so weird. Now you can't.
I can't hear it now.
Now I can't hear it either.
Okay. No.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. Sorry.
Technical difficulties. What a blessing.
Yeah, totally. So it becomes one key factor. So you could have something where you have the same moment arm, and Michael was alluding to this earlier, but depending on the source of the resistance, that moment arm is going to have a different demand, right? As you start to move through the motion. The other thing that I think about is that moment arm, can be really important as I'm deciding which part of the range of motion I want to develop the greatest sensory feedback. Yeah.
Yes.
So yeah, it becomes a really interesting thing to manipulate in context. And the other thing I think is really exciting about it is trying to figure out how to use language with your client that allows them to appreciate the experience that you've designed for them, right? Because that becomes fun too. Is if as they appreciate the difference in what they did before versus what they're doing now, right? In terms of just the experience, and then the consequence of what they're doing now versus what they did before, it adds value to what you do. And now, you're not worried about this person getting to the end of their 20 pack and stepping to the to the studio down the street that, you know, also has candles, but also has a musician playing softly in the background, right? You know, you're just not worried about that. You know what I'm saying? Right?
For sure.
For sure, man.
I love it. No, that's cool though. That makes complete sense.
I love it. I got something as like maybe a more like practical example, if I can throw that. I mean, everything you guys are saying, I 100% agree with. But like from like a nerdy practical, I mean, I can't not think about it. But I absolutely love playing with mechanical modified kind of drop sets in real time. Like, how do I work on an endurance situation for a client, whether it's for a high level athlete or a senior? You know, this is a terrible example, but like a personal one. Do I take a tricep extension, stand far back, so I've got this gigantic moment arm at the bottom, and then a drop off at the starting position, so I can deliberately use a little bit of inertia at the beginning to get to the end range. And then when I start getting tired, get a little bit closer and see if there's a way that I can continue this set by changing the cable position. And then when the elbow side of thing gets tired, well, can I now switch it so I'm using something that a larger muscle tissue like my shoulder extensors, keep my elbows straight, and then try to push through that a little bit, but then do the same thing where I step back, use a little bit of inertia, heavy at the bottom, and then switching, so it's a more balanced thing, but I can actually get through it. It's just a lot of fun. I personally love it. I think about it pretty much every single workout myself, but with clients, kind of coming back to what Jacques said with like what do you want the sensory feedback to be? There's so much cool things with that. Like I recently did one played around with the video for a golfer, and I think you were talking about this, Curtis, with the extreme stretch position with the pure torque. I forget the name of that. But getting someone to completely load themselves with the most gigantic moment arm in the lengthened position of a golf swing, practicing ownership there, and then practicing getting out of there. It's so much fun. It's just so much fun. So to your question, I mean, those are silly practical examples, but I can't not think about it. It's just ingrained in there because of everything we've learned. Thank you, TP, for shoving that in our brains.
TP.
You know, there's another aspect of moment arms that's interesting too, and it kind of goes two different ways. Is moment arm, and I'll say also the end result torque, right? So moment arm, we think of, you know, not only the moment arm, but also the load, the magnitude of the load. So our tendency is to say, hey, if we're, you know, doing an exercise with someone and they say, ouch, that hurts, you know, that pinches a little bit, you know, or they are not feeling it where we want them to feel it, our instinct is to go lighter, right? Make it lighter. So either decrease the load or make the moment arm smaller, right? That's kind of the default. And what's interesting though is that there are conditions, and it's more than 50% of the time, when you actually might need to go heavier, right? Or make the moment arm larger in order to get what you are going after. Now, the key in trying to tease that out, though, is always you have to have some sort of hypothesis, right? So your hypothesis is at first, if I make it lighter, they'll feel it where I want them to feel it, and they won't have any pain, right? Hypothesis number one, you do it, they go, nope, still hurts, or nope, still don't feel it. You make it even lighter, and now it's paper light, and you know they're wondering why they're doing anything. Yeah. So and then at that point, you usually give up. But what I want to propose is, well, hey, try going the other way. Right? See if your hypothesis will allow you to go the other way. Make the moment arm larger or increase the load, and see if you get any kind of shift in both the experience and the stimulation.
Can I say something to that? Okay, because like I love that. I love it. So here's my theory, right? So sorry, I got excited. So there's a PT I talked to here, and he's like, I think that we are underdosing. He thinks that in general the PTs are underdosing, and so that's why they're not getting results, as in they're not feeling a certain thing or whatever it is when their patients are there. And he's like, I feel like we need to actually like put something on them or be more strategic with this. And I've been seeing that where it's like, we think, default, go backwards, lighten it up, do this. Or what if we make it more challenging? And that could be it doesn't have to be a load. It could be with the moment arm or whatever it is and how much torque it's producing. You could do those things. I think and again, there's a time and a place, but I think I've seen that be very effective, and it's been very interesting to see if that makes, so I love that.
So here's the one thing that I will throw out there, because you bring up a really important scenario, Curtis, and this is the part that I think a lot of our colleagues have to be really, really mindful of, is there's another part of this that we're always considering, and that is the joint forces, right? especially if in a rehab situation. I agree, you might be underdosing, but if you start to dose up, push the dose up without managing the joint forces, right? Or you decide to change the direction of the force as you change the moment arm, man, now you're not even doing the same thing.
Right.
Right. So so like we were talking about earlier, the moment arm is one thing. Torque is another thing. But then you got to consider and the dose, how much you want to apply, how little you want to apply. That's all important. But then you got to consider those joint forces, because at the end of that, now you start to have some sloppy things happening in the joint, and now we get some all kinds of other kind of inflammatory things that happen that, you know, push things sideways and make people blow up.
Why are you thinking about that? That's too much thinking, Jacques.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.
You know, I get that a lot.
Yeah.
That's cool though. I mean, that's the things you think about. I feel like if people are coming to us for that professional opinion, are we thinking about those things? You know, I don't think a lot of people are. And that's why I like observing you guys and what you do in these talks, because you're thinking about these things. And I'm like, yo, feed me.
Yeah.
Me.
I have a quick story of the exact thing that Jacques was talking about. I got a hypersensitive, like 72-year-old woman who's like the chronic suboccipital pain headache person. The person that if she reaches her arms up too high, she's concerned she's going to get a headache. And we established this in the assessment. If she brings her arms out in front, she tenses her neck for even more than a few seconds, she's worried about a headache, and sometimes she actually gets one. And so we were trying to build out a little exercise program for her, and we've already been doing some rows, chest supported Kaiser row. And I wanted to try and see if we can get some posterior chain loading by using the Nautilus row. And at that time, the Nautilus compound row, not chest supported, still had the gigantic steel arms on it that come with them that are kind of. So when I went to go load it, I put 50 pounds on it, which was an adequate amount of load for her. And she said, listen, I'm a little nervous about this. Can we try lighter? I said, we for sure can. There's a chance you might feel some things you might not like, but let's just check it out. So we went to the 20 pounds, I think it was. And when she grabbed it, she grabbed the handles and her arms sagged down like this, because the very handles of the machine was far too heavy for her. And it was actually yanking down and started to give her some neck problems. So we squashed it that day. She wasn't happy with it, like uncomfortable. So we came back to it a week later. And I said, hey, listen, I want to try something with you. Open to trying this. We went back to the 50 pounds. And the 50 pounds of the weight was just enough to supersede the weight of the actual metal arms, steel arms, and she actually felt better doing it. She's like, I think this is so weird. It's heavier and harder, but it feels, and it was just like one of those cool light bulb moments where I was like, this hypersensitive woman, we went heavier, opposite of what a doctor would recommend, and it worked out really good.
That's cool. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? But again, that's the thing you're thinking about, the weight of the handles, when they'd be like, it's just the machine. There's no other influences on it, right? And that's what's cool. Like when Michael was like, Curtis, I'm confused by your question. I'm like, all right, I didn't say it well enough, right? And you went this route of like talking about these other things. I'm like, yes, there's all these other things. You can't just, it's almost like you can't separate one from another, if that makes sense what I'm saying, right? Which was a nice, like Michael's like, yo, bro, you can't separate that. You got to add this in, you got to add this in. Then Jacques like, well, I'm going to add this in. That's what's great, you know? So anyways, I just want to say I appreciate that. Thank you.
So I have a question for you, Curtis, because you deal with a lot of athletes, younger athletes, and they need to get out onto the pitch, the field, or whatever sport that they're doing. Yeah. And so when they come to you and your assessment, you find out that this isolated function, let's say trunk rotation, and let's stick with the trunk because you mentioned it first. That trunk rotation needs some work. What are the steps in your framework that takes you from working on this one isolated piece out to the pitch?
Yeah, it's a great question. If I'm gonna reference Matthew Bernier. So when I took a test a while back with him, and the first initial test, he had said to me, like, I want you to start thinking outside of that, almost like he was trying to get me to think like a systems approach. Well, if the body does this, what happens to this muscle, this muscle, this muscle? So when I start with somebody, I might find a local area that they're having trouble with, but what are the influences above and below, around? It could also be like mental. Like it could be that there's pain there and they don't want to go there. So then how do I, like what Jacques was saying, how do I make that exercise, whether it's more load, less load, moment, or whatever, how do I get them to be like, wow, that's a good experience? I think what I found too is if I can get them to have a good experience and they're rotating appropriately through their trunk, they will tend to like, oh, I'm okay now. So is that really a mechanical thing, or that this hurts and so I don't want to move like that? But really that's actually a healthy way. But how their hitting coach or whatever has been articulating how to swing a bat or something or kick a ball was actually against the laws of their structure. I'm seeing this more and more now. skill coaches are teaching things that go against the laws of a structure. And so I have to almost like re-educate them, like, you're built like this. Your thoracic's like this and your legs are all the way to the ground, or your thoracic's like this compared to we've got to teach you, you got to own this area more, or you got to own this area more. So I'll really start kind of simple of like, if I can get them to understand this one thing, then I treat it like a snowball effect where I can start to layer, oh, this is, and come back to that, and then layer and come back to that. So I've kind of take it from a teaching approach where I want to teach them how they move versus we got to get your velocity up. You got to swing harder. And what a lot of people do, grab a med ball, throw it into the wall as hard as you can. That might not be the first place. You might have to go backwards a little bit. And even just like down regulating a little bit allows them to like, they're good now. So I probably take the approach of like, okay, what am I seeing? What's going on? And then also too, like, I'm practicing exercise every day. I mean, I'm practicing it, right? With this person, what exercise is good for them? This is good. This is not. They don't like this. You know, it's like Jacques' tea. Like, is it the right temperature or the wrong temperature? What temperature do you want your tea?
Is
and
it tea?
From there, I assumed. So that's an assumption. Don't make assumptions as trainers. Don't do that. Anyways, so yeah, figuring out how they want that for them. And then, okay, we're pretty good. Let's nudge it forward. So I kind of start back, make it simple, and layer it on top. If that kind of answers your question. A lot of times people are like, we got to throw harder, do better. It's like,
and what's the next step along from there? So what's the next step on that continuum to being out on the pitch where you're thinking about improving their performance out there in your facility?
Got it. Yes. So I think about from the assessment, how they're moving, whatever it is. But then I also think about, okay, well, how do you rotate? When you have a bat in your hands or you're pitching for softball or baseball, how do you move? What are the forces that are happening to you? And then how do I, in a controlled environment, slowly train those pieces, and then we'll do something that will integrate it together. There's a bunch of different options of different drills that I can do or exercises I can do, depending on how they do it, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So I'll nudge the needle that way, but then everybody wants to do things faster. But if you don't know how to absorb into a position or how to get to that position, we might start there, and then I might just speed it up. Or like, hey, maybe they start here. If I'm a right-handed hitter and I'm going that way, I might have them like start here, and they always shift into their back and then rotate. Well, I might be like, hey, I want you to stabilize that front leg. So you're going to start here, and then I want you to kind of like relax under control and allow yourself to you're focusing on that finished position, so you're not shifting into my hip and my back and then rotating. So maybe I do that piece, and then we might take something from there and be like, okay, now we're going to do it to where we just go. So I'll try to like merge that gap a little bit, which I'm starting to see there's a trend happening of the strength side in college athletics, professional, in the skill side. They are getting closer and closer and closer together. So if you don't have an understanding of this and they don't have a basic understanding of this, that's why this happens. Oh, the kids are weak. Well, they don't move very well. They're not moving very well. Guys, come on. You need to know both so we can merge. So I think that's what's been helpful of like piecing them into there, because they might have an issue with an eccentric. It might not be that they don't want to go fast because they can't stop how fast they're going, which is causing pain. It might be that, and then we might just do eccentrics where it's slow and then it's fast and then like oh, it feels great. So hopefully that part answers from there. And then like I don't have a cage here, so I'm like, when you go hit it home or when you go hit, please text me how you're feeling, what's going on. That's the best I can do from like literally onto the field. But I look at it from merging it to there. So if this is the tune-up shop, when they go to race the car out there, they're good to go. If that kind of makes sense.
I got a question for you on that.
Because the people who are watching or listening in, they're exposed to people saying it must look like the exercise, or they're exposed to people saying you need to be moving at the same speed.
Got you.
And there are these myths that are still there in our industry. Definitely in this country, definitely in the US, definitely in Canada.
Yes. Sorry. I got what you're saying now. It does not have to look like it. Let's just put it that way. It does not have to look like it. If I can pick an exercise that will put the demands on that area that I want it to learn or acquire, I'll do it that way. It may not look exactly like the swing, but it might be something that's like, hey, I need to focus on your ability to allow your pelvis to move into a fixed femur. What's the exercise you do for that? Okay, make it up. Build the exercise around them so they can get that attribute and then integrate it from there, if that kind of makes sense. So it does not need to look like a swing. It doesn't need to look like a throw. It could be a piece for they get the attribute and then go from there. So, yeah, it doesn't have to look like it at all. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Sorry, Brandon. You were about to say something.
Yeah, no, Curtis, I have a quick question for you, and then I'd love to hear what Jacques got to after, because he's got such sensual questions. I think it'll be great. But Curtis, I was wondering actually with you, because I mean, I got away from doing athletics several years ago with hockey guys, and I know this is way more so important with golf and baseball than it is hockey. I know that coaches have a high amount of expectations of like specific positions that athletes can get to, like for pitchers specifically, like being able to get their arm fully externally rotated so they can get their hand behind their head, like being able to achieve these really big ranges. And I'm wondering, just because what Michael asked kind of spawned this, how many times have you had a coach come in and be like, hey, Curtis, I need Steve to get to X, Y, and Z position, and you see that they're just not capable of getting to the position that's required, and how you handle that as a coach?
Do you mean politely how I handle it?
How you handle it? I mean, politically, because if you're working with these guys in a business
Yeah.
relationship, I mean, how do you make sure that they keep referring to you and you basically tell them that you're not going to do it, or do you?
They honestly, like, a lot of these coaches want to paint their picture on top of somebody else's picture or their athlete's picture. So they don't look at how the athlete moves. They have a visual of the type of picture they want to see when they're doing certain moves. So the hard part is to have them understand, like, hey, this is a picture done by Picasso. You know, this isn't cubism, right? You like cubism. This picture is Picasso. So then from there, you're not going to change that up. So how do you work with that layer of that makes sense? How do you work with that picture and like, okay, maybe we can negotiate this, but then it might be that, okay, maybe in this area of the picture, we can get a little Picasso-esque, and that will help get you the cubism. Because coaches don't like politely. It's like, and I have to be polite about it, but it's like, listen, he doesn't move like that, right? That's why his shoulder hurts. Now, can we work on that aspect of that? Yes, but because his low back moves, he might be able to get it from there. But they have in their mind exactly what the artwork should look like based off of their bias, and they want every athlete to look like that, because from a marketing standpoint, they can say, I got that kid there. No, you didn't do the work. They did the work. You set up an environment to help them flourish. So quit taking credit. So with those, that's just what I've seen, where it's like you kind of negotiate back and forth. Like, well, I might ask, why do you want that? This guy in the big leagues doesn't do that, and he throws 100. A lot of these guys that don't have long arm whip, they're throwing harder. Like, whoa, we're teaching long arm swing, but these pitchers, some of these guys are throwing 100 and they're not getting there. So why do you want that? So I might ask a question back to them, and it's fine. But I think the biggest thing I found from that too, when working with athletes, is athletes don't feel like they're being heard. They're being told what to do. They're not allowed to hear or speak or be involved in their process. They are experiment to be done. And I think that's why we get a lot of athletes, to be honest, because they're getting better, but they're being heard. And that's probably why your clients and my clients like coming to you, whether it's adults, they feel heard. So I think that's a big part of that. And the coaches are confused. It's not about that. The coaches are confused, and why they come in is because, like, why does my kid like you so much? Why does my athlete like you so much? Because they're being heard. Who doesn't want to be heard? You know, so I think it's a bigger factor. That's a psychological issue, and I'm not going to go down that route, if that makes sense. I'm not a psychologist.
I love it, man. And I hear you, man. I'll hear you. I love it.
Yeah.
Just really quickly, Travis Allen was here, and he says, Jacques Taylor, you're looking swole, man.
Yeah.
You look swole.
You look great.
You look great, man. I mean, you know when you're wearing like a regular shirt and you can see like the traps and your delts and everything, like it's just not fair. Like that shirt cost you $5, but you look like $1 million man. Like this is great.
That's very kind of you guys. You're funny.
And Travis is really liking the restaurant lighting at Michael Goulden's. So,
that's right.
We did ask a question about the nervous system, but I think we'll save that to the end if we got a bit of time. Jacques, what you got for the group there, man? What are you thinking about these days? What do you want to know?
Well, a couple things. We've all been in this industry a long time, and we've had a chance to dive into our areas of what we like, what we're interested in. And I'm wondering if outside, maybe even inside of your area of expertise, or outside, is there anything that you feel like you've gotten more details on, like a less of a cartoonish image? Like for example, for years when someone said muscle, I had kind of a cartoon picture in my head of a kind of, Popeye, like just like outside. I didn't have the details of what was going on the inside. And I'm wondering, is there anything either within your primary discipline or outside of your primary discipline where you've had a chance to peel back and get into the details a little bit more, and what that might be? What is that stuff?
Can Michael go first if you're good to go? I want to hear Michael speak. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or not? You don't have to go first.
I think it should be Michael because he didn't prepare a question and now he needs to be put on the spot. Let's go.
Yeah, that's fine. I think when I did a cadaver class, and I was fortunate enough to teach on that cadaver class where I was actually, so I'd already done, I'd been a participant in cadaver classes up until that point. But when I got the opportunity to actually do that, and it was in a local facility here, and we had a class, and we were able to get into the joint and see bone and touch it and really kind of feel this thing that we're dealing with and really see it. And it became more than just plastic.
Right.
It was more than just this thing with loads of colorful things all over, which is still cartoonish, right? It's not real. Yeah. And then it became, more like that, where it's actually super light and actually porous. And you start to understand that that's not perfect. And this facet is different to this facet, and you see it live, and you're like, shit, all the stuff that I've done for the last 20 years, or the last 15, or the last 10 years on that area of the body. And it really kind of, it turned that cartoon image into something that was real.
I love it.
And then seeing those muscles, and then seeing how the muscles are really, there's no space. For sure we can find that kind of section in between your anterior delta and your pec major, but you look at the whole body and it's all over the body. And that for me was just, it just kind of opened up pathways to how I'm thinking about training clients, which means that I've been doing that. I did that in 2017, and I've been training clients since 96. And so even though I've been looking at all this stuff, and I've done cadaver stuff in the early 2000s, it was only until that point that it's kind of like, oh, wow, these things are opening up in my brain. And all along that keeps happening, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So just real quick follow-up, Michael. So would you say that having that refined or more detailed understanding, has that simplified things, or has it made it more expansive? Which way has it gone for you, or maybe both? I don't know.
Yeah, I think expansive would be the most appropriate way. But there's I guess not simplification, but it goes back to what we've been saying all along, that actually once you give the body the recognition that it deserves and the respect that it deserves, it kind of frees you from following the rules. Now, don't get me wrong, you need to follow the rules at some point, because it takes you time to learn all of these variables that we're all exploring and talking about today. There's got to be some guidelines, there's got to be a framework, but it offers the opportunity for you to, you see something with a client, and rather than dismiss it or pretend it didn't happen, it opens up that opportunity for you to be curious. And that is an ongoing thing for me, in terms of that, we've seen a lot of people over the years, we see a lot of strange things, and it doesn't look like it does in the NSCA textbook, which is a great textbook. Or the, name what other resource we've all studied from at some point in our careers. It doesn't look pretty. It isn't perfect. We haven't put this together. This thing's we're reverse engineering something. So that's it. I think expansive is probably the most appropriate term.
Cool.
That's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's deep, man. That's super good. I think mine has to do with aging. Like, I think that for all of this, I mean, I've been training now for 17 years, And I thought all around exercise. I thought way about like a bodybuilding bias was my first way I got into it. Growing muscle and then trying to help people, get skinnier or grow muscle in the gym. And then realizing the power of how this can help people with problems in their body, like things they don't like how they feel, and you can use exercise and people feel better after exercising. And then started kind of getting the layers pulled back, that if we just think about like aging at all, like aging isn't just something that's like, it's a thing and then you're an old person, right? Because that's how I thought of it as a kid, right? Like, I don't know if you guys, but to me, 50-year-olds nowadays, I was a kid, 50-year-olds looked like grandparents. Nowadays, 50-year-olds are still like young and healthy looking.
Right.
Right. And then I don't know many, I know 70-year-olds that don't look, you know what I mean though? I know what's going on here. But like there's a lot of people I know who are 70 now and they still look really young and great. And so like when I was younger, there was like you're in school, you're working, then you retire, then you're an old person with a cup of tea on the porch, you got grandkids, and then you're done. I don't see that anymore. And I think that's a state of mind, but also I think a gigantic component is just more knowing about the integration of how movement, locomotion, skeletal muscle plays with all the rest of their system, from vascular dementia to cardiac disease, like all these different things. So like for me, when I'm with a client nowadays, I mean, as much as I think about that moment, I literally most of the time am thinking about like 20 years from now. And it's not like this exercise is going to make a 20-year change, but I'm thinking about them like, how do I have this person learn as much as they can in this moment? So if they stop coming to see me tomorrow, this will serve them forever. And it's served me as a detriment too, because I get frustrated. Like when I have someone that's like, I'm feeling this thing on my arm is hurting. I'm going to stop exercising for the next 3 months and I'll call you in a bit. Right? It doesn't happen very often. You know what I mean? Right? Like, they're like, I got this pinky finger is bleeding right here. Can't see you for 6 years. That's frustrating for me because that if they stop doing everything, that things slow down for them and change. Right. And it's hard to communicate that and be like, listen, how do you say that? Listen, in 6 years, you're not going to be able to come back from this. So now, I mean, Michael's point with the cadaver, that's huge. I can't not see active aging, anti-aging style properties. And I mean that in a very pragmatic sense rather than like a woo-woo sense, if that makes sense. So I think that's a great question, Jacques.
Yeah.
There's one example of, because the anti-aging thing is we get a lot of clients come here that actually say that's what they want because they know that exercise keeps them young. And it's common knowledge. So we're in 2022, 2017, 2015, people were asking that. It's common knowledge. We kind of knew about it a long time ago. It's common knowledge, but it always felt like woo-woo. And then I think it must have been 2008, 2010. I ended up in this dude's class in LA when he started talking about this thing called BDNF. And
I think it was
plus, isn't it? That was the it might have been BDSM. Yeah, no, that was the wrong club. Yeah. And this so Jacques was the one that kind of opened up that pathway of looking at how, what is mechanotransduction? And when you hold on to this dumbbell, how does that transfer through to the muscle? But actually, what's the effect on the nervous system? And it's so integral to everything that we do, right? And how we think about exercise and how we think about movement. It just, there are all these things that it's common knowledge. There are all these things that we kind of know, and then all of a sudden it's kind of laid out. I'm not saying that we know for definite every time we do this bicep curl, and I'm sure Jacques would frown at me if I said that, but it opens up these potential pathways for how neurogenesis occurs. It's amazing. And that was another one of those eye-opening things that I thought that your answer just inspired, Brandon.
Yo, I'm glad. I mean, honestly, to Jacques too, like more credit to you, like the endothelial growth factor, like that totally, when I learned about that from you, so, I mean, that changed my mind, like it blew my mind because that's like opened so many doors to think about things differently. I mean, it's great because like you said, Michael, it's like, it's a woo-woo thing that people think about, but there's a point where you've been doing this long enough and there's enough clients that have been around doing this that you have like evidence of this. You're like, it's not real. So I have a lady that's been with me for 7 years, and she's 73 now. And for the last 7 years, she hasn't aged at all. Like, she seems exactly the same. And in her community, her peers and contemporaries are seeing her, and they're like, what are you doing? Because they're going downhill, and she's staying the same. Literally Monday, a couple from her the place of worship she goes to walked in here, and they were like, listen, I know you want to talk to us, but like, no matter what you say, we're in. We want what she's got. And, you know, that's $1,000 coming to the gym. And it was like, the first time I've ever had someone come in, because they're like, listen, I don't know what you do exactly, but if you can do what you did for her, for us mostly, we're in. And it was just like, it was awesome. So, yeah.
That's cool.
You know, one of my favorite things to do with my clients, we do this about once a year. And depending on how old they are, I'll give them a questionnaire that'll say, what are the things that you want to be able to do in 5, 10, 15, and 20 years from now, right? So like 20 years from now, like, for example, some people say, I want to do a marathon. It's like, okay, great. 5 years from now, do you want to still be able to do a marathon? Yes. 10 years from now? Yes. 20 years from now? No. Okay. So now we can start to plan how we're going to manage the way you're going to use your body so you can do these things, knowing that this year is your last one, right? And we're going to figure out the other. So it's and sometimes it's just play with the grandkids. Sometimes it's live on my own, right? But the list is there. And sometimes you could say, well, can you do this today? No, I can't. Okay, well, so we're going to work on it. And what Brandon was talking about is sometimes you'll see things where people say, hey, look, I don't need to get any faster. I don't need to get any stronger. I just want to hold on. I'm good right here. I can do everything that I want to do. And as long as you're honoring that, every now and then they might come in and say, you know what? There's this hike down in Peru that I just never thought about, but my granddaughter keeps talking about it. And I'm wondering, do you think I can do it? You know what? I think you can. And here's how we're going to get you ready to do that. Thank goodness you haven't been doing some of that other stuff, because your body might not be, you know, in a position to go. But yeah.
That's cool. So cool.
I mean, what Travis Allen says, he sees dead people. So that's kind of back to the Jacques stuff. Curtis, what about you, man? What do you see? What do you see that's different now based off of Jacques' question?
I think for me, it's spinal mechanics, man. And it's been a big one for me, right? So especially as of lately, I feel like something really clicked for me lately. I would say spinal mechanics, understand the spine, kind of off what Michael said, like not every single is, we look at the skeleton, sorry, my skeleton's over here, but we look at the skeleton, it's like the same. It's the same. No, it's not. How's that person use that body? What are they doing? Have they had any injuries? What's going on? So my understanding of that, but then also layering, and I'm talking about this from a rotational standpoint. How is the person interacting with the ground? So understanding ground forces, like I've been doing some stuff with force plates, and like when people do stuff, and understanding like how are they actually creating rotation when they walk, when they rotate by swinging, how are they doing that? And so my understanding of spinal mechanics, I feel like I understood it. I think when I heard about central pattern generating or, you know, disassociation, that kind of clicked for me. But now I'm realizing now, like, what are the forces that we're actually fighting where there's no load on us? I have to produce the force to cause movement to happen. How are we doing that? What are the forces I'm dealing with in my environment? So I think spinal mechanics is kind of where I've been with understanding, like, oh, the pelvis actually moves like this. Oh, it can do this. How many degrees of motion? Like I'd heard it before, but now I'm like, oh, this is actually all you get here. Or, oh, that makes more sense. Or, whoa, look at all the motion up here. Or, wow, now what's on top of the thoracic spine? The ribs. What are the ribs doing? How do they play a factor? Are they going like this? Are they going like this? So I think the spine and understanding it, and I feel like I'm seeing it much better. Like I think I got it, but I think now I look at somebody, I'm like, whoa, that's amazing why they're there. What do you do on a normal basis? Okay, that kind of makes sense. And then how do you slowly get them to acquire that, right? And I feel like that's what's made a lot more sense to me, is like, because the spine was like, there's a lot of stuff there. Like I remember in college, I'm like, wow, that's a lot of vertebrae. I know how many are here. I know how many are here, how many are here, right? And then I remember when I first heard about transitional levels in the spine, I was like, whoa. Then it was like that. Then like, oh, and it just kept building upon that. But now I feel like revisiting some old books like the Kapanji books and then looking at some other stuff, it's really helped me to like understand it. And then recently I went, like within the past year, to me, that's recent. There's a ortho around here. Him and I connected. I was like, hey, do you mind if I come watch a surgery or something? He's like, well, I got to clear it with them. So I got to watch a fusion get done. And that was like humbling.
Dude, that's insane.
Like, almost more like what Michael said, I have more of a respect of like, what are the forces I'm putting through this area? What am I doing? Because like, if they have to go to this extent, holy cow. Or then it also gave me appreciation of when they do the fusion. Now what's changed? I'm like, oh, well, we can't move that area very well. Now I'm like, whoa, that area's got some reinforcement. So I feel like the spine has been something that I'm actually seeing. It's not like, oh, there's a spine. Here's the curves. Now I'm like, almost like, whoa, look at the type of paint they use. That was an oil paint. Look at this different oil paint. I feel like I'm like seeing it that way now. So, which has been cool. But I feel like I'm constantly learning, but I feel like I've been on this because I've been getting asked to talk more about rotation and that type of stuff. I'm like, let me revisit this more. But some things that I've been seeing that more because I think because I'm consuming it more. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And I want my back to be healthy, so why not?
Jacques, how about your own question to yourself, man? What do you see? You see things differently than all of us, and I love that. What do you see?
I think I've been I've really been trying to understand metabolism, not from the eating standpoint, but as your nervous system recruits different tissues and different motor units within a tissue, how it orchestrates the use of oxygen and other materials to generate ATP, and understanding the role that genetics plays in it, and also understanding this thing that can happen, where you are doing your best to design a workout for a client, and you're watching some numbers go up, and you're like, that's progress. And when they go to perform, their performance goes down. And you're like, uh-oh, hold on now. You do this better, and you do that better, and you don't have any pain, and that now sucks by 20%. Or even by 3% is not a good deal if you're working with a professional athlete.
Yeah.
Well, everybody okay? Oh, what just happened?
Everything? Just froze. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Your tea just kicked in, man. That's what it was.
Is VO2 max, like, what are the consequences to having an improved VO2 max? What is happening inside those tissues? What is happening in terms of the way the nervous system is recruiting those tissues that might increase your ability to do one thing while compromising your ability to do something else, right?
Yeah.
And I think that we've had the anecdote of, oh, he put on too much, well, he's slow now, right? Or, which is it? Because then we see some NFL beasts where you just like, dude, put on some muscle and he's fast as whatever, right? And not always enhanced by stuff, sometimes, but not always, right?
Just liver.
Yeah, just liver. Just eating a lot of protein. But really trying to understand, really trying to make my understanding of muscular metabolism and understanding the heart and the lungs and the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. And I actually had somebody argue with me and say that was carbon monoxide. And I was just sort of like, stop, just don't even, just stop it. Anyway, getting carbon dioxide out. So yeah, that's the stuff that I'm just really curious about, and been reading and studying about it a lot.
I love it, man. Well, when you start putting some of that in your coursework, please let us know, because I'd love to learn more about what you find with that. You got a great way of looking at things. I'd love to know more.
Oh, word up. I'll let you know. Yeah.
What's been the thing that surprised you the most about that, Jacques?
That we actually have.
You always have a hypothesis, and what's really kind of thrown you off?
I wouldn't say that it's throwing me off. What I think is really cool about it is that these are actually observable things. We don't have to. We don't have to be as ignorant as we are about it, right? And when I say we, like, I will make it a royal we, because y'all might know this stuff. I will admit that I'm late to the game on this end of things, but I think it's less of surprise and more of, holy crap, look at all this stuff. Look at, like, I mean, it to me, it answers some of those questions of, why is this client doing so well with this weight loss scenario under these conditions, and this person just isn't. I mean, they're not eating like a hog. They're doing what I'm asking them to do. And, you know, I'm doing the, you know, as trainers, we have the old trick of, well, if that didn't work, just change it. And then it does change. And you're like, okay, you're losing weight. Great. Now we can actually delve in there and kind of go, well, why did that happen? And could I have explored something when I first met them, so that we didn't have to go 3 months in this direction to go, oh, hypothesis failed. Let's try this other thing. Right. Which is fine. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'd like to be a little bit more strategic and less clumsy. Right.
I feel it.
Yeah.
Beautiful, man. Hey, Michael, what question you got for everybody? I know you've been preparing this for the last 3 or 4 days, so I'm really excited to see what you got for us.
I've got a lot of questions. So this is Biomechanics Business Bonanza. I've got a question for each, but I think if you think about the people watching who haven't dived in for as long as you guys, in terms of biomechanics, in terms of metabolism, in terms of all the things that we're talking about, how have you been able to integrate studying and learning into your life? Because you're busy, you've got clients, you've got families.
Yeah.
How have you been able to bring it in?
Is that cool if I go first?
Yeah, give her, man.
I got to roll in a sec. I think for me, so this is my personal account, essentially. I married a woman who encouraged me to learn. She didn't like, you're good where you're at, right? So that was a big thing. So finding a support system, whether it's friends, whatever it is, that will help you keep you on track, right? Like, okay, or you can talk with them through those things. But on the flip side, sometimes you just got to jump in, like, go somewhere where you don't know, and then start to take that information and break it down. I'll never forget, I just started that course, and then the people that were hosting it was like, this guy's coming from LA and it's FNS1. And I'll never forget, man, like, I still will not forget to this day, where it's the first hour and you're talking and like, hey guys, what are some things to make you think about the health of somebody's system? And, you know, and they said, well, what about the way their breath smells? And I was like, and you were talking about, like, if it was like sweet or whatever it is, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, like the attention to detail, where I was like, I'm almost in over my head, but I loved it because I had a chance to almost like, okay, this is where I'm at. How do I learn and grow? So if it's a certain area that you struggle with, dive in, find somebody that you might resonate with and go for it, right? Where it's like, hey, stick to a schedule. Is it an hour a day that you're going to explore that thing that's uncomfortable that you don't know? Are you going to go talk to somebody that knows this stuff, and you'll have a conversation and they can be like, well, actually, okay, cool. There's a learning moment. Don't be afraid to learn and be uncomfortable, because that's where truth growth comes from. And I think that with training, we're doing that with our clients, but we can't show that we don't know. Like, that's why I appreciate Jacques' answer. He's like, I'm behind, and I'm over here kind of smirking like, you're not behind, but he has a different, or I'm late to the game is what you said, not behind, Jacques, sorry. Late to the game.
Same.
What you're saying is your frame of reference is different than all three of our frame of reference. You're looking at material that we are not looking at, right? And so from that, he's like, Jacques, like, I want to be there. I want to keep going, right? But we all have that to some aspect. Keep going forward and find a way to be consistent with that. And there might be times we need to kind of chill for a bit and you're like, okay, I've chilled enough. Now let's go again. What don't I know? Okay, I'm not very good at business. Okay, what do you need to work on? Do you need to build systems? Do you need to figure out a way to make transactions easier? Do you not know metabolism? Okay, well, maybe you should go find a course locally or find a book, or, hey, go to an expert that you think is an expert. Now, I say that with a grain of salt, not a guru or anything, somebody that you respect that is, and maybe just like, instead of going to a course, you can be like, hey, can I pay for an hour of your time? What is it? Go straight to the source and make that investment into yourself, right? Oh, your fee is $250 for an hour. Great. I will pay that. Let me budget that. Cool. Let me pay it. Now, where do I need to go? Ask your questions. Do you have anything I should read? And maybe I can meet with you next quarter. What is it? So invest in yourself, but find a way to be consistent. And with kids, it's much harder. But if it is important to you, you will make time for it. So if you're good where you're at, cool. But if you really want to go somewhere with that and get better, do those things. And that's just my perspective. But find a good support system. Don't be afraid of being uncomfortable, and take every opportunity as a learning moment and look at your blind spots, essentially. Like, what am I not good at? And how do I get better at those things? So that's how I would look at it.
Chris, that's a great answer, man. And I know you got to peel out, and you just said something right in your answer that I want to say. You said, you make time for things that are important. And thanks so much for making time for this, man. Really appreciate it. Yeah. And I'll send you a message a little bit later, man. But enjoy the rest of your day. And thanks for all your wisdom today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, appreciate you. Good to see you guys. I'll talk to you.
Hey, good to see you, Curtis.
Yeah, do your thing.
Good to see you too.
All right, man.
All right, y'all.
So, Jacques, what about you, man? As far as your studying goes, to Michael's question, how do you make studying happen with everything you got going on?
It's an inextricable part of what's going on. It's something that I don't. And this is going to sound weird, but it's just been built in since I was a kid. It's just part. It was part of the family way, so to speak. So yeah, it's just built in, and I think that I am constantly challenged by my clients. The easy part is to judge your business based on how well you retain your clients. And for a while, I was comfortable with that. But then when I started to look at, well, this client's been around for a while. And when I look back at the reason for coming in and look where we are now, I was like, wait a minute, they haven't hit their goal and they're not even asking about it anymore. Why? Because they just like me and they like this environment. That's cool, but I should be doing what I can as a professional to either ask them about this goal and say, is this still relevant to you? And to see where they are with it. And when I started to do that, they were like, yeah, I really do want that, but I just figured I can't have it because it hasn't happened. And you seem to know what you're doing. Right. So that keeps me looking, searching, being curious. And I don't know, it's just a way, it's a way, it is a way. And I thoroughly enjoy it. Working with colleagues like you and Michael and Curtis, and the list goes on. I mean, of folks who are always asking great questions, always, not necessarily to me, but, putting them out in the world. And, so yeah, study is, it's absolutely vital. And the key is, find those little windows for it. When can you do it? When you're holding your little one and they're kind of going to sleep, just get your little book, read a paragraph, put it down, reread the paragraph, right? And it kind of sticks a little bit more. Read it to your toddler and watch them go, "You're so silly. What does that mean?" Yeah.
I love it, man. That's a great answer, man. Thank you.
How about you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm spread thinner these days than I have been before because, I've got a great team here. I'm busy taking care of the team and clients, and then some online education stuff, as you guys know, with this stuff here, and then kids. So I've had to consolidate my studying because I definitely did a lot of, I would say, like recreational studying, like learning more about things as it relates to the body and exercise. That was fun and interesting to learn about, but wasn't insanely immediately pragmatic to my business. So I took a page out of my music stuff, and it was, well, I practice studying for the gig. And for me, it's, well, what information this week, this day, this hour, this minute do I need that's going to serve me immediately? So if I can't study, for me, if I study for the gig, that means there's immediate application for the information I'm learning. So, I mean, I have a client who's got some nerve damage, and I was rereading some neuroplasticity stuff. And I was like, oh, vibration, right? That's another thing, right? So that it just opens a doorway. What can I learn about the specific things my clients are going through right now that can change how I'm going to approach things? Because for me, it has to have payoff for the client, but also at the same time in a way that's kind of engaging for me. So I practice studying for the gig. What do I need to learn more about? Do I need to learn more about algorithmic changes on Facebook and Instagram so I can share that with my students? Do I need to learn more about spinal pathology or this particular thing that's on an x-ray report that I haven't seen before, a fusion in this area? What does that even look like? And then can I integrate that knowledge and or into application? And then piggybacking off of Curtis, the third step of it is if I'm really stuck and I feel like I will, stand on the shoulder of giants, I'll absolutely take that information and will pay someone who is a leader in that world to, for an hour of their time so I can ask a bunch of questions about it if I'm feeling stuck. So I don't have the same level of time to do research. When I was learning more about the PAP stuff, thanks to McMillan's nudge and Jacques, I spent hours. I got ridiculous notebooks of just like graphs and drawings and hours and hours and hours. I couldn't do that same level of research right now with the time that I've got. But I can go back to it, consolidate the parts of it that were important to me, and learn more about short-term and long-term potentiation. And then how does that double back to PAP? And does that go somewhere else? And all that kind of stuff. That's all I got.
It's awesome.
Awesome. Well, listen, I think, I don't know what you guys think, but I think this is a good time to slowly put a pin in today. What do you guys think?
It's funny. I want to know more about what you guys are up to, like just on, I guess, a business front, right? We've all been refining the product, the service that we deliver. And I'm curious, what are you guys doing, business wise? Are you relying on just word of mouth? I mean, that's all that really takes right now, or do you have other strategies? Are you finding that you're still being faithful to Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and Micmac and Howdy Doody and all that stuff? Or
I'm happy to throw a bid in here because I'm obsessed with this right now, if that's okay.
Sure, yeah.
So what is today? Today is December 16th. And so from the 16th, we have 13 new clients since the beginning of the month. And we're doing a lot of different things to try and make that happen. 5 of which are from word of mouth and are from referrals. Like the 2 I mentioned were the couple that walked in that were sold because of my client. We were doing a lot of social media stuff to try and get interest, but the algorithm, at least from my observation on Facebook and Instagram, has really changed a lot, where it's hard to get the same level of exposure. So we've been spending a lot more time on doing, boots on the ground, connecting with local experts, and then what we call conversion events, where we go to high-level professionals with great pools of people. I mean, I love chiropractors because especially in Canada, they're private mostly, and they've got usually thousands of clients that are like, see them as the guru and the leader. We'll go build a relationship with them and then go in and then do a few different series of events that we like to do to generate interest and get people excited about what we do, and then collect contact information and pull them in. We've only done one this month because December is a bit hairy, but I think we got 5 or 6 clients from the one that we did at a place up the street called Foster Family Chiropractic, and they're fantastic. And to be quite honest, I mean, the combination of 3 things, referrals, outbound conversion events with experts, and then number 3 is just optimizing our SEO. So when people search Newmarket, my town, personal training, we're at the top of the list. Those three things have just been absolutely king for us. If I had a piece of wisdom, I would share that the biggest thing that was like the biggest revelation in the last 5 years and more so the last couple of years is we've made the vernacular we're using on our website so ubiquitous with what the consumer searches that we don't accidentally say something over top of them. Like my website doesn't say resistance training specialist program, neurophysiology, post-activation potentiation. It's very much like, what would the cold and warm level prospects see when they're like, what are they going to Google search? And when they do Google search that, like back pain exercise or something like that, how do we make sure that we're at the top of the list? And also our messaging is differentiated from places that, make people bleed, vomit, and do group exercise. So that's where we're at. And yeah, Michael, what about you, man?
Well, we're at a different scale because we're not a massive health club with a full team. We're effectively consultants, and so we have, a number of clients that have been with us for a long, long time as well. But it's really right now, it's based upon, in terms of the personal training business, it's still based upon referrals. And that referral rate is it's only just now picked up to the same as what the referral rate was in, January 2019. And it's only been November when we've hit that back again, because, in terms of where our clients have gone, where our clients are due to the pandemic, we've still got clients that are in a different country. They've still not come back yet. So they've kind of gone, and we've replaced them with new clients, but that's been just referrals. We've not done any outbound. We've not done any social media. We don't have a social media page for INTEGRA PT. But the one thing that I would like to do for 2023, but this means I need to find someone and hire someone who could work with me to do this. I'd like to provide more resources for our clients. So I'd like to, the conversations we have with clients, I love, and they ask us questions. We're trying to get down to business, and they kind of ask us about, our opinions about exercise and health and all the different facets of what we do. I'd like to provide something that they can read, something that they can watch that supports their education. And so that would be the only thing that I'd like to change into 2023. And then if those materials, if I thought they were useful and we could roll them out to potential clients. But I really like the referral system where, Brandon says, I've had this amazing experience. You should go see these guys. Because that means that that's already a little trigger. It's already a step along the funnel for them being a client.
Michael, you're already there. Like, in my opinion, you are like 1% away from making those resources happen. Like, you already have the live streaming set up. You already have like the sound. You got the video. I mean, honestly, like if you're talking about creating like high quality lead magnets, I mean, you really just need a VA to like chop up the videos and put them in a library. Like one of the things I'm a big fan of is this idea of like, I call it the this or that strategy. You go to a wedding, like, do you want super salad? Do you want steak or chicken? Right. Well, if you're like, if someone's calling you like, hey, Michael, I'm interested in what you do, but I heard you're expensive. Can you tell me more about what you do? Well, you can ask some questions. Be like, hey, well, listen, if you want, we can do one of two things. I can either send you a video that's 4 steps to relieve back pain with exercise. There are 4 common exercises that work really well. Or if you want, you can come in and we can sit down and talk a little bit more. Which of those would you prefer? And then that way they kind of get to choose their own adventure of like, are they going to take the resource and then they're in your lead pipeline, you talk to them, or are they going to come in? And then if they go the lead magnet way, then okay, well, they're kind of interested in my soup a little bit. And you can call them, hello, this is Michael. I'd like to talk to you more. You can continue that conversation. I think you just need a video editor, like someone you could just literally press record, be like, hey, Michael, here, I want to talk about my 4 favorite exercise tips to help people with back pain. Here are 4 exercise tips. Have someone chop it up and, soup and salad.
Roll on 2023.
Let's go. Let's go. It's all romantic lighting. Jacques, what are you working on, man? And then I think that'd be a good place to roll this, pin this thing up.
Sure. Yeah, I think I'm working on those relationships with professionals in the community. really expanding those. And then I think the other part that I'm going to start to sort out is because I agree. I think the social media thing has its place, but it's not for the one-on-one stuff. I think the only reason that why I need to get back on there is for the force and the nervous system stuff. Michael has given me a brilliant, just a brilliant setup for the next iteration of the class. It'll take place over a year, January to December, 3 months off, take a month off, 3 months on, take a month off, that kind of a deal. And it's just brilliant because that's been the experience. It's like, people are all charged. And then by the time you get to like month another 7 or 8, they're just like, oh dude, I just need some time to let my head just settle with this stuff. So 3 months on, take a month to digest and get your questions together and then jump back in. So I'm looking forward to doing that, but I think I need to get on some social media to promote that experience. Yes, that's what I'm working on.
I'm excited to see it, man. I'm excited to see what you do. You got a great way of delivering things once you jump in, so I think it's going to be beautiful.
Here we go. Thank you.
All right, Michael. Well, Jacques, listen, and Curse is gone, but I gotta say, this is like, I really look forward to this. It's like I get a little I don't get nervous before going live anymore, but with you guys, I get a little nervous because like you guys are like, they're studs. You guys are great. This is just, it's so much fun to connect with friends and also mentors in my mind I look up to at the same time. It's just great.
It's very kind of you, man. I really look forward to this too. I love it.
Me too.
Well, what do you guys say? You want to do this again next year?
Yes, let's do it next year.
Beautiful. All right, guys. Well, let's do it. All right, Jacques, Michael, Clay, who's gone. Happy 2022. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys next year.
You bet, man. Best of luck.
Have a good one.